Welcome to this short revision video on your tropical storm case study, which is Typhoon Haiyan. Now, if we have a look at the map from the previous video, you'll notice that typhoons form in the West Pacific here, and this storm particularly affected the Philippines countries here. So this is a typhoon that formed over the Western Pacific, over water which must have been 27 degrees centigrade or higher, and which then moved this way across the Philippines and then actually hit the mainland afterwards. It was a very devastating storm. Was called a super typhoon. So if we have a look here, this is a map which shows the course that the storm took. So it came across the Pacific Ocean. These islands, this group of islands here is the Philippines, and it moved across the Philippines over into the South China Sea and then up into hit Vietnam, affected the China, Vietnam and Cambodia. But we're going to particularly focus on the impacts on the Philippines, on the islands there. So the storm took place, it was a category 5, so Typhoon Haiyan. So remember, a typhoon is the same as a hurricane, is the same as a cyclone, it's just where they are that leads to that name. So it occurred in 2013, and there were some reasons why it was really very devastating. It hit the Philippines, and we're going to particularly look at the impacts on the Philippines. Now, as the storm came in, it was a category 5, which is the highest category. It had wind speeds which were incredibly high. So there were wind speeds up to 196 miles per hour, and that's sustained wind speeds, which is absolutely devastating. And at that point, everything's going. A big problem for the Philippines was that many of the islands are low-lying. Okay, so there's some ocean and a low-lying island. The Philippines is a middle-income country, so it's not a low-income country, but there is a level of poverty in many areas, and houses are not necessarily going to be built to withstand the storm surge or the winds. So as this very large tidal storm surge came in up to 5 metres high, flooding across lands, great areas were completely cleared and houses were washed away, clearly devastating communities. So there was a 5 metre plus storm surge, and many areas were flooded. Now, there was a specific problem for this area, and this has come out a bit dark. Let's see if you can see. So here, this dark area here is a deep area of the ocean, but the yellow lines are around the edge of the Philippine Islands. This is all the Philippines. The storm came in here from the open ocean, category 5, incredibly strong winds, incredibly heavy rain, and it moved this way. Now, if you look at the shape of the bay here, leading up to Tacloban City, which is where the red marker is, can you see the shape of the bay there? Now, that was at the centre of things. So, as we recreate that, so Tacloban City is here. This is the sea, the ocean. And as the storm surge came in, the water was pushed forward by the storm. It moved into this funnel-shaped bay. And the water rose up higher and higher and higher as it's forced into a narrower and narrower area. And that caused extensive flooding from the storm surge. I'm not going to give you lots and lots of facts and figures. You can go away and find those yourselves. But some key areas. So the airport was completely submerged. Now, why would that be a problem if in the middle of a storm your airport is flooded? Have a think about that. Why is that going to be an issue? The airport is just about here on a little promontory that's sticking out. So clearly, if your airport is flooded, then an impact of that will be it's very difficult to get in and out at a time when obviously you would be desperately wanting to bring in help. Right, let's just have a quick think about how we need to divide up the information here. Now, obviously, we need to be ready to talk about primary and secondary effects. This is what happened due to the storm, and then what happened as a secondary effect of the primary effects. We're also going to think about immediate responses, and then we're also going to think about long-term responses, and both of those are very important. Okay, so we have some of the primary effects that we would talk about would be flooding, so the airports, homes, businesses, the fishing boats, and it was a large fishing area, were destroyed. So those are specific, and you want to be mentioning the name of the city, which is Tacloban. Okay, there were many other areas affected, but Tacloban city was right in the middle there. It's very badly affected. Now, secondary effects, obviously if your fishing fleet is destroyed, you're going to also therefore have less income or no income for, I'm going to put fishermen, women, less food supply, because obviously there was a lot of food that was provided by the fishing fleets. Lack of access as the airport is shut down. Okay, so people can't get around, people are stranded. There was disease due to lack of clean water, because obviously as the flooding occurs, it disrupts the water supply. So these are some specifics, but please bear in mind there will be obviously power cuts, roads blocked, just washed away, and there will be your sort of generic things happening, and then these terrible tragic events specific to Typhoon Haiyan. And remember, if you've got a question about this, you want to try and include one or two specifics. Now, there are lots of others and there are lots of places. I'll put some links at the bottom. Okay, so those are the effects, what happened. If we come down to the responses, this means what did people do? If you respond to something, you react to it. What were some of those immediate responses? Well, charities and governments sent. So what kinds of things would they be sending in this situation? Okay, so absolutely they'd be sending food, shelter, so tents, emergency shelter and equipment, medical teams, etc. So the key thing then is you're keeping people alive. That's an immediate response. I think I'll just give you a figure. The UK government sent supplies for 800,000 people. That was the UK government, but that's one government among many. The Red Cross would have been involved, and so on. So that's a specific one there. Long-term response is a rebuilding. So a long-term response, remember, immediate response is days and weeks. long-term responses, months and years. Rebuilding homes, roads, bridges. And a really interesting one here. Some charities replaced fishing boats. So they looked at the situation and said, look, what can we do that will have a really quite a speedy impact on the situation? So once you've got everybody safe, people are fed, and so on, the longer term response. So replacing fishing boats is a really, really good one, because obviously then the fishermen get back to, well, the fisherwomen get back to having their income, you increase the food supply and you start that multiplier effect up that's happening locally. So there are some facts and figures here. I'll put some links at the bottom, and obviously in your revision guide you have some of these. Now don't feel you have to learn every single one of these facts and figures, please. You've got this, but please do maybe take away a couple of facts. Make sure you've got the idea that Tacloban is there, and bear in mind what we said at the beginning. There were some really key problems that made it so much worse. It was a very, very powerful storm. These are low-lying islands, so they were easily flooded. You know, if it was a mountain, people could go up there, but they can't. You can't get away if there's nowhere high up. And this funnel-shaped bay, as the water pushed in towards Tacloban city, it rose up and created a huge storm surge. Okay, so that's your case study. Take some facts and figures away. Bear in mind that the development of the country will have had an impact, and bear in mind that the physical geography of the area will have had an impact.